I said, you need to move. I'm not sitting next to people like you. Her voice cut through the low murmur of boarding passengers like shattered glass. Heads turned. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Every row went still. Andre didn't flinch. He sat calmly, seatbelt already fastened in 3A, his eyes fixed ahead. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. The woman standing with the boarding pass crumpled in her fist glared down at him like he was dirt in her garden. This is outrageous. This must be a mistake, she hissed. First class isn't for people like him. A teenage boy across the aisle whispered to his mother, "What's going on?" She shushed him, eyes locked forward like nothing was happening. Andre shifted slightly in his seat, but didn't give her the satisfaction of a response. Her tone carried centuries of entitlement. It wasn't just the words. It was the disgust that dripped from every syllable. "I demand to speak to someone," she barked. "There's no way that he's supposed to be here." Whispers spread down the aisle like wildfire. Some watched, some turned away. Andre sat still, spine straight. He'd been here before. Not this seat, not this flight, but in this same ugly moment. And he knew exactly what came next. "I bet he just walked up and sat down like no one would notice," she snapped, now addressing the growing audience of passengers. "You people are always trying to cheat the system." Her voice rose with every word, soaking the air with assumptions and coded racism. She pointed at Andre's seat like it personally offended her. "How could he even afford this?" she spat. "You expect me to believe he paid for first class?" Andre turned his head slowly and looked at her. Silent, composed, unreadable. "I don't feel safe," she added louder now. "He's intimidating me." The flight attendant finally approached, glancing between them. "Ma'am, can I see your boarding pass?" "He's in my seat," she insisted, eyes wild. "He's the problem." And just like that, she had flipped the script, victim becoming accuser. Across the aisle, a woman discreetly tapped her phone screen, camera angled toward the conflict. Her hands trembled, but she kept recording. A man 3 rows back adjusted his headphones, eyes darting to the window. He looked like he wanted to vanish into the upholstery. Someone else coughed awkwardly, then looked down at their lap. Andre's gaze scanned the cabin, faces avoiding his. Not one person had said a word. The silence stung more than her insults. This was how everyday racism survived. Not always through shouting, but through shrugs, turned heads, and people pretending not to hear. She exploded. "Get him out of here," she screeched. "He's threatening me. He's making me uncomfortable." Gasps rippled through the cabin. The flight attendant's voice cracked as he tried to calm her, but she plowed ahead, louder and more dramatic. "I will not be ignored. This is a safety issue." Andre didn't move. His chest rose once slowly. Then with barely concealed discomfort, the attendant turned to him. "Sir, can I see your boarding pass?" Again. Andre didn't speak. He just reached into his jacket, producing the same ticket he'd already shown. He held it up without a word, without breaking eye contact. But in his silence, the humiliation echoed louder than her screams. His hand trembled slightly as he extended the pass. Not from fear, from restraint. His knuckles whitened, fingers curling inward as the paper hovered between them. He could speak, he could shout, but he chose silence. Because soon she'd learn who she was screaming at. And when she did, she'd choke on every word. He didn't blink when the attendant asked for his ticket again. Because Andre Lewis had dealt with this before. Too many times before. Just 2 months earlier, he'd earned the title Captain. A black pilot, 38 years old, trusted to lead a commercial airliner through turbulence, mechanical failures, emergency landings, and people like her. The airline had announced his promotion with muted applause. No fanfare. But that wasn't why he did it. Andre never needed recognition. He flew for the love of it, for the discipline, for the boy he used to be, dreaming with his eyes to the sky. At 14, he drew wings on every page of his notebook. Landing gears, cockpits, flight paths. You're smart, but maybe aim for something more realistic, his guidance counselor told him. That industry isn't really open like that. He didn't ask what that meant. He already knew. At flight school, he stood out, not for skill, but for skin. He was the only one who got randomly selected for locker checks, the only one the instructor double-checked during solo evaluations, but he stayed. And he soared. Andre learned early. Good wasn't good enough. He pressed every uniform, memorized every checklist, arrived an hour early to shifts just to prove he belonged. He learned to speak clearly, assertively, but never too assertively. One slip, one delay, one complaint, and it wouldn't be the schedule's fault. It'd be the black pilot messed up. So he stayed sharp, stayed quiet, let his record speak. Because in this system, dignity had to be earned again every day. Today wasn't about cockpits or commands. Andre was just flying home. Jeans, hoodie, carry on. He'd spent the past week caring for his mother after surgery. He needed rest, not respect. But at the check-in desk, the agent had glanced at his boarding pass, then at him, and hesitated. Like it didn't make sense. "Sir, can you step to the side?" Andre didn't argue. He'd heard it before. His license, clean. His ID, scanned twice. At the gate, the staff rescanned his boarding pass, then asked what group he was in, even though it said first in bold. He kept walking, because being black and flying first class wasn't suspicious to him, but clearly, it still was to them. Andre hands over his first-class ticket, the same ticket he'd already shown the agent at check-in. The gate agent scans it once, then twice. Her gaze flicks between the ticket and his face, lingering just a fraction longer than necessary. She doesn't apologize, doesn't offer a smile, just a tight-lipped mechanical smile. He notices the man in khakis ahead of him. The agent barely blinks as she checks his ticket. Andre says nothing, but the tension begins to build, thicken the air between them. As Andre walks into first class, he feels the eyes. They track him. A businessman lowers his paper just enough to follow Andre's every move. An older couple exchanges a glance before quickly looking away, their faces betraying judgment. Andre feels it, the silent disapproval. But he's been through this enough to know the drill. No words are needed. He sits beside a well-dressed woman in her early 50s. She tightens her grip on her designer purse, her eyes never meeting his. She crosses her legs, subtly moving away from him. Without looking up, she mutters, just loud enough for him to hear, "You're probably looking for a coach, right?" Andre turns his head toward her with a calm smile. "Number this is my seat." Her lips press into a thin line. The moment hangs heavy in the air, stiff and unspoken, but sharp. The woman leans in toward the flight attendant, her voice low but laced with venom. "I'm sure there's been a mix-up," she says, her tone dripping with disdain. "This man doesn't belong here." Andre can hear the fragments of her words, the venom hidden behind the sweetness of her voice. "Doesn't belong. I paid for comfort." The flight attendant hesitates, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. She looks at Andre, her eyes wide with uncertainty, before nodding slightly and stepping away, unsure how to address what she's hearing. Andre remains still, his jaw tight. His hands rest at his sides, but inside, a storm brews. Andre doesn't respond. He doesn't snap. He doesn't raise his voice. Instead, he sits back in his seat, staring ahead. His fists, loosely clenched on his lap, tremble slightly. Just enough for him to feel the pressure of what he's holding inside. It's a practiced calmness. a strategy honed over years of navigating this world where every misstep could be used to tear him down. He knows he's being tested. The silence grows, oppressive, like a weight on his chest. But he remains composed. It's not that he's afraid. It's that he's learned the price of speaking out, the cost of fighting back in this moment. But the camera lingers on his face, calm on the outside, but the fire within, burning brighter with each passing second. The tension continues to build as Andre's internal struggle rises to the surface, and his next moves will reveal the depth of his resilience. The audience feels the mounting pressure. His silent strength is a quiet act of resistance. Let me know when you're ready for the next section. The major injustice, public humiliation and betrayal. No warning, no build-up. Just a loud, venomous screech that cuts through the tense, muffled hum of the cabin. You people always try to sneak into places you don't belong. The words explode from the woman's mouth like a bullet, and for a moment, time stops. Conversations die mid-sentence. Heads whip around in disbelief. Some gasp. Others freeze, unable to move. Andre's breath catches in his throat. He's not stunned by the words themselves, but by the fact that it's happening again. So openly, so shamelessly. The moment hangs like a storm cloud in the cabin. The silence is thick, heavy, the kind that feels suffocating, and no one knows what will happen next. The flight attendant approaches, her steps tentative, almost unsure. Her eyes dart nervously between Andre and the woman, as if hoping this will all just resolve itself. "Can I see your ticket once more, sir?" she asks, voice tight, barely above a whisper. Andre remains still for a moment, his gaze unwavering. He doesn't say a word at first. Then, with slow deliberation, he reaches into his jacket and pulls out the ticket. The attendant studies it, her eyes scanning the paper as if she's decoding ancient scripture. "Thank you," she mutters, barely audible. The woman's smirk grows, victorious. A young woman sitting a few rows back reaches down and subtly lifts her phone. The camera starts rolling, though her hand shakes ever so slightly. Behind her, a white man's voice rises, clear and firm. "Leave him alone. He's done nothing wrong." People turn their heads, drawn by the sudden outburst. Some look on with mild curiosity, but most return to their silence, eyes fixed on anything but the confrontation. The rest, they stay quiet, eyes averted. The silence is its own form of betrayal, louder than any words. Andre straightens in his seat, his back stiffening as if he's made a decision. His voice comes out low, steady, but razor sharp. "This is the last time I explain myself to anyone on this plane," he says, his words cutting through the silence. The air is thick with tension. The woman scoffs, rolling her eyes. "I want to switch seats," she mutters, as if this is just some petty inconvenience. "I'm calling corporate." Andre doesn't flinch. He doesn't need to anymore. His words have already been said. He's done explaining. A male crew member appears, his face stern, but there's a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you off the aircraft." The woman's reaction is immediate. She shrieks, her voice high-pitched, filled with disbelief. "No, he's the one who should leave. I paid for comfort." Passengers stir, some looking at each other, others shifting uncomfortably in their seats. She clutches her bag like a shield, as if it will protect her from the consequences of her words. Then, the intercom crackles to life, and a voice breaks through the chaos. "Good afternoon. This is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard. This is your flight, under the command of Captain Andre Lewis." Dead. Silence. Her face locks up. The confidence drains from her expression in an instant. The smirk is gone, replaced by the cold reality of her mistake. Her eyes scan Andre again. This time, with horror, not superiority. A ripple of realization spreads across the cabin like sudden turbulence. The passengers shift uneasily in their seats. Some whisper to one another. Others hold their breath as the truth settles over the plane like a heavy fog. Andre doesn't move. He just looks straight ahead, calm and composed, unshaken by the eruption he's caused. The woman's jaw drops. She clutches her pearls, speechless, her face falling into a mask of shame. Andre gives her one final glance, controlled, powerful, and silent. He turns forward, adjusting his cuffs, and for once, the silence works in his favor. Murmurs break the silence like a ripple across water. The cabin, still in shock from the revelation, begins to stir. That's the captain? A voice, barely above a whisper, spreads like wildfire. The tension in the air shifts. Then, the subtle sound of a phone clicking into record mode. People begin to realize the magnitude of what's just unfolded. A soft clap erupts from the back row, then another and another, until the applause spreads, hesitant but growing louder. It's not just a gesture. It's a statement. The woman's face drains of color. The truth hits her harder than any words ever could. The very man she degraded. He's the one in control. He's been in control all along. Andre's power is no longer hidden. It's felt. The flight attendant's eyes flicker to Andre, her voice trembling as she stammers, "Captain, I didn't know." Andre's gaze is steady, his expression unreadable. He simply nods. No anger, no bitterness, just a calm recognition of what's transpired. Her face flushes, her gaze shifting nervously between him and the woman who's still holding onto her victim narrative. For the first time, the attendant feels what it's like to be under scrutiny. Andre walks out of the cockpit, his posture tall, his uniform sharp. He's no longer just another black man. He's Captain Andre Lewis. His presence fills the aisle, and every eye follows his calm, measured steps. He stops in front of the woman, who's still trying to compose herself, still clinging to her defiance. He meets her gaze directly, unwavering. "I gave you the dignity you refused to give me," Andre says, his voice quiet, but every word cutting through the tension. A few gasps ripple through the cabin. A hush falls, thick and heavy. That one sentence shifts the emotional balance entirely, leaving the room breathless, still. A senior flight attendant, now fully in control, steps forward. "Ma'am, due to your behavior, we can remove you from this flight." The woman's face crumbles, her bravado evaporating in an instant. "You can't do this. I didn't know," she pleads, her voice shaking. Her tone, once full of entitlement, is now filled with desperation. The passengers watch, some still recording, others exchanging glances. One woman's voice rises, cutting through the tension. "No one cares if you're crying now." Her words hang in the air, stark and unyielding. The woman's cries for mercy go unheard. It's a moment of poetic justice. A passenger near the window, a young woman in her 20s, mutters to her friend with a knowing look, "I hope this goes viral. People need to see this." Her phone's camera is already recording, following Andre's every step as he walks back to the cockpit. With each step, he moves more confidently, his head held high, every stride a declaration of control. The moment is bigger than any argument. It's a victory without words. The passengers are no longer passive. They look at him with new respect, admiration, and understanding. As he closes the door to the cockpit, the cabin buzzes with energy, but the tone has changed forever. Security arrives, their presence final and undeniable. The woman tries to protest, but no one comes to her defense. Her voice, once sharp and full of entitlement, now cracks in desperation. A few passengers begin to clap, their applause slow at first, then growing in conviction. One woman mutters, "About time." Andre remains silent, his composure unwavering. He doesn't need to say a word. She's not just leaving the plane. She's walking into a world that will no longer tolerate her hate. The video spreads like wildfire. Passenger screams at black man, then learns he's the pilot, trends within minutes. Celebrities tweet their support. Activists post their solidarity. News outlets pick up the story, sharing it with millions. Captain Andre, fly with dignity. Respect the uniform. The comment sections explode. He didn't just fly the plane, he flew above hate. Andre stays grounded, focused on his work, but the world begins to lift him higher. His quiet strength becomes the voice of change. In an exclusive national interview, Andre speaks with unshakable grace. He doesn't name the woman. There's no need. Racism doesn't always scream, he says, his words measured and powerful. Sometimes it whispers, "You don't belong." He talks about the subtlety of doubt, about being second-guessed before ever being seen for who he truly is. His voice cracks only for a moment, but it's enough. The interview resonates deeply. Viewers cry, comments flood in, solidarity, support, and understanding. Other black pilots share their own experiences. The silence is breaking. Andre's story is sparking a movement. Andre walks through the airport in full uniform. TSA agents nod at him with quiet respect. Passengers smile and whisper. A child points excitedly. "Mom, that's the pilot from the video." Andre smiles back, not out of ego but purpose. His journey isn't over. It's just beginning. The camera pans behind him as he strides through the terminal. The world may have once doubted him, but now it's following his lead. He's not just a pilot. He's the face of something greater, a movement for change. If you were sitting on that flight, watching it happen, what would you have done? You see the injustice unfold. The words cut through the air. Would you have stayed silent or stood up? Put yourself in that moment. Think about it. Let's talk about it. Was justice served? Have you ever experienced something like this? Your voice matters. Comment below. Let's start the conversation and keep it going. Know someone who needs to see this? Send it to a friend. Start a conversation. Spark awareness. Let's make sure this story reaches everyone. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. We've got more real, raw, and righteous stories coming. Don't miss out. Join the movement and be part of the change.